Greetings. Today is Friday, August 15, 2025. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. At the time of recording this video, it is 7 a.m. local time in the northeastern Caribbean, where we continue closely monitoring the evolution of what is still Tropical Storm Erin. However, Erin is currently undergoing a process of rapid intensification, and it is very likely that by 8 a.m. the National Hurricane Center will classify this cyclone as the first hurricane of the season. After several days monitoring Tropical Storm Erin, which remained as a weak tropical storm, since yesterday it has moved into a much more favorable environment for strengthening, and this morning we can see how it is developing strong thunderstorms and convection towers over the center of circulation. In fact, it is expected that over the next 72 hours it will undergo a rapid intensification process and could eventually reach Category 4 when it is located north of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. In the infrared satellite animation, we can see the extent of the outer bands of the tropical cyclone, which will be affecting some of the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico throughout the weekend. So, in this video, we will not only be discussing the projections and the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, but we will also talk about the local effects expected between Saturday and Monday, which include some tropical storm force winds, heavy rain, and dangerous marine conditions across the northeastern Caribbean. Since last night, we finally saw Tropical Storm Erin begin to make that turn toward the west-northwest, just as forecast. In addition, a Hurricane Hunter aircraft investigated the area and gathered very important data for track and intensity projections. Zooming in on the infrared satellite animation, we can see how impressive Tropical Storm Erin's structure looks. Near the center of circulation, we see areas of thunderstorms beginning to develop and with great intensity, which is why Erin is already close to becoming a Category 1 hurricane. Here you can see how sea surface temperatures are changing, and it is no coincidence that once it crossed the 28 degrees Celsius isotherm, it began that intensification process, and as it continues its path toward the northeastern Caribbean and eventually moves over areas of the southwestern Atlantic, it will be traveling over temperatures between 29 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius, which will be enough for it to become a powerful and dangerous Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane. With the data gathered by the Hurricane Hunter aircraft, we now have more precise projections, and we see total consensus among the track models, where at least for the next 3 days no significant changes are expected. The center of circulation would pass about 175 to 225 miles northeast of Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands. You can see that it is projected to take a turn toward the north, and everything seems to indicate it would pass west of Bermuda and east of the United States, which would definitely be the best-case scenario since there is a possibility that Tropical Storm Erin and the future Hurricane Erin will not directly impact any land areas. While the intensity projections indicate a rapid intensification process over the next 48 hours, by Sunday and Monday it could reach Category 4 with maximum sustained winds over 130 miles per hour. And we are confident in these track and intensity projections, especially when we look at the ensemble members of the American model, where today we have less spread in the possible solutions, and it seems the eastern United States is not under direct threat from the future Hurricane Erin. However, you can see some scenarios that could bring the cyclone near the island of Bermuda. In addition, the projections from the members of the European model also have good consensus for the next 3 to 4 days. And although in the medium and long term we still see some spread among the different solutions, you can see that almost all of them maintain that turn toward the eastern United States and toward the west of the island of Bermuda. The official forecast from the National Hurricane Center is close to these projections. A movement toward the west-northwest over the next 3 days, when it passes at its closest point to the northeastern Caribbean, it could already be a Category 3 hurricane, and on Monday morning, a Category 4 hurricane when it is north of the Dominican Republic. Under this forecast, no land areas are within the cone of uncertainty. You can also see that a tropical storm watch remains in effect for the northern Leeward Islands, and it is possible that this watch will be extended to parts of the Virgin Islands. In this image, you can see the infrared satellite projection from the American model for Tuesday night. I share this image so you can see what the circulation and structure of the future Hurricane Erin could look like. It is projected that at this time it will reach its peak intensity as it moves through the southwestern Atlantic. Let's then talk about the local effects expected in the northern Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. Let's begin by looking at the wind gust projection from the European model. You can see that tropical storm and hurricane force winds would remain northeast of the Caribbean. However, some outer bands could bring some wind gusts between 30 to 35 miles per hour. However, some of the outer bands could bring some winds in the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico, and the model projects that some wind gusts between 30 to 35 miles per hour could be reported, while for the Dominican Republic, tropical storm force winds will remain north and northeast of the region. The Turks and Caicos Islands could receive some tropical storm force winds between 35 to 40 miles per hour next Monday. With this track, the highest rainfall accumulations will remain north of Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands. For the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the northern Leeward Islands, and parts of eastern and northern Dominican Republic, between 2 to 4 inches could fall from Saturday through Monday. This is the equivalent of 50 to 100 millimeters. And more than the rain and wind, we are quite concerned about the marine conditions. You can see that very strong waves are expected throughout the weekend, affecting the northern Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic, with seas that may reach between 10 to 12 feet high, or between 2 to 4 meters. These dangerous conditions will move toward areas of the Bahamas and the eastern United States during the start of next week. So please use caution this weekend and stay away from and out of the water at beaches in the north and east of the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and the northern Leeward Islands. Well, that's all for the forecast update on what will very likely already be Hurricane Erin by 8 a.m. This afternoon I will record a new video to update the forecast. See you later.